They weren't on the lists, and you erased them!
They told me to remove all mentions.
Marie Collins knelt in the middle of the burned-out warehouse, clutching a charred scrap of fabric in her hand. Smoke coiled around her, and the harsh tang of chemicals still clung to the air. Far off, fire engines and ambulances wailed. Red and blue lights flickered in the distance. Marie was a paramedic, but right now she was only a mother who had just lost her son. Her son, firefighter Danny Collins, had died in that blaze. Tears stung Marie's eyes, but she would not look away from what she was holding, a scorched piece of Danny's uniform. On it was a stain of an odd color rusty green, like chemical residue. She had seen more than a few fires in her career, but she had never noticed anything like this before. Her heart clenched with grief and with suspicion. Something here was wrong. Get her out of here. Now, a commanding voice barked behind her. Marie felt a hand touch her shoulder, trying to lift her up. She spun around and recognized the fire captain who had worked alongside Danny. His face was smeared with soot, and his eyes were red from smoke, and, she suspected, from tears. "Marie, I am so sorry," the captain said softly, but it was hard for her to hear him over the roar of blood in her ears. She remembered how only a few minutes earlier she had seen the burned body on a stretcher, a firefighter in turnout gear with a name patch that read Collins. Her heart had split in two, and the world had reeled. The captain had caught her before she hit the ground. What happened? How could this happen? Marie whispered now, staring at the still burning remains of the warehouse. Firefighters kept dousing stubborn hotspots. She noticed the flames had a strange tinge of bluish cast that did not look like an ordinary fire. An explosion, we do not know yet, the captain sighed, looking away. You should not be here. You know that, Danny. He did not finish, but Marie already knew. Her son had died in the line of duty. Her shoulders shook, but she swallowed the scream. She had to find the truth about this fire. The next few days passed like a fog. The official cause came quickly: an electrical short and a gas cylinder explosion in the warehouse. Marie's heart rebelled against that easy answer. She had been on the scene and had seen things that did not fit. The odd color of the flames. The chemical bite so strong it stung even through a respirator. The strange burns on Danny's body. The medical examiner later confided to Marie, in a whisper, that he had found traces of an unknown chemical in her son's lungs, but he had been told to keep quiet about it. Nearly the whole town turned out for Danny's funeral. The sirens of the fire engines cried one last salute to a hero. Marie stood hollow-eyed, accepting condolences from friends and colleagues. At her side was her best friend, Becca Stone, a reporter at the local paper. Becca held Marie's hand without a word, and sometimes that steady grip was the only thing that kept Marie from falling into the pit of her grief. After the ceremony, other families of the fallen approached Marie. They embraced through tears, finding a measure of comfort in one another. Marie found herself alone for a moment before her son's portrait. Danny smiled out from the photograph, young, full of life. The same mischievous grin he had had as a boy. She remembered how a week before the tragedy he had swung by her ambulance station with a box of donuts. "Snack break, Mom," he had said, and they had laughed as they grabbed bites between calls. Danny had told her the firehouse crew was putting on a charity event and asked her to come along. She had waved him off, joking that someone had to keep saving the townsfolk while they partied. He had hugged her goodbye and said, "You are the best, Mom." The memory pierced her heart with pain and warmth. Marie could barely stay on her feet. Becca came to her side and took her arm. Her friend spoke in a low voice. "You are holding up," Becca said, her brown eyes shining with resolve. "But I know you. You do not believe this was just some random fire, do you?" Marie looked at her with empty eyes and murmured, "Something was off, Becca. I cannot explain it. That smell, the colored flames, and the marks on Danny's gear. It felt like something chemical burned in there." Becca exhaled and glanced around to make sure no one was close enough to hear. "Listen," she whispered, "I have been digging. That warehouse belonged to a questionable outfit. I am not certain yet, but does the name Aegiswave mean anything to you?" Marie shook her head. No, never heard of it. Me neither, until yesterday. Becca pulled a small notebook from her purse, pages already full of scribbles. They are supposedly a private defense contractor. What were they doing in our little town? And why rent that old warehouse? Good questions. Marie listened, feeling worry and anger rise inside her. You think they are tied to the fire? She asked. Becca lifted one shoulder. Do not know yet, but I am collecting everything I can. You know I am not letting this go. Danny was like a nephew to us. I am going to help you find the truth. Marie squeezed her friend's hand, and for the first time in days, something sparked in her eyes besides sorrow. It was a glint of hope and resolve. The next day, Marie decided to check the site herself more carefully. After the official investigators had done their work and left the ruins, she returned wearing gloves and a mask. The warehouse was gutted, the roof collapsed. She stepped carefully over blackened debris, searching for, she did not know what, a hint that this tragedy was no accident. She found one. Beneath a shard of a steel beam, Marie spotted a fragment of a device, a small cylindrical piece, fused at one end. She picked it up. There, ghosted into the metal, were letters. She squinted and made them out. Awe. Her pulse kicked. Aegiswave. Footsteps sounded behind her. She whirled, tucking the find into her pocket. A stranger was approaching sports jacket, a baseball cap pulled low. Marie tensed. Excuse me, are you Marie Collins? He asked in a surprisingly steady tone. She nodded, not taking her eyes off him. Who are you? The man removed his cap, revealing tousled sandy hair and tired eyes. My name is Caleb, he said. Caleb Hunt. We need to talk, but not here. I might have been followed. Marie took a half step back. She wanted to tell him to get out, but the name Aegiswave flashed like a red warning light in her mind. If this stranger knew something. Do you work for Aegiswave? She asked, her voice cold. Caleb flinched and shook his head. No, not anymore. I used to be an engineer for them, but this is not the time. Please, Marie, I am on your side. I want the truth out, too. She studied him in silence, weighing whether he could be trusted. Caleb slowly raised his hands, palms forward, showing he meant no harm. Your son did not just die in a fire, he said quietly. He was killed. The ground seemed to drop out from under Marie. She barely found her voice. What are you saying? How dare you? I know it is a shock, Caleb said, eyes down. But it was not an accident. The fire was set to cover up the test of a very dangerous technology. Marie glanced around dizzy. She pulled the charred cylinder from her pocket. Is this part of it? She asked sharply. Caleb's eyes widened when he saw the piece. He nodded quickly. Yes, a fuel cell housing. See the awl mark? That is theirs. I have never seen that mark anywhere else. Marie realized he knew much more. Her heart hammered, not sure whether from fear or hope. Let us get out of here, she breathed at last. If you are right, we both need a safe place to talk. Caleb nodded. They slipped away from the site, careful and alert. An hour later, they were in Marie's kitchen. Becca Stone had joined them. Marie had called on the way, and her friend had rushed over, alarmed by the jagged explanation she had heard. Caleb kept glancing at the windows while Marie poured steaming coffee for everyone. Tell us everything, Marie said firmly, taking a seat across from him. What happened to my son, and what does Aegiswave have to do with it? Caleb sighed and covered his face with his hands for a moment. Then he chose his words. I worked at Aegiswave for 5 years. We were developing cutting-edge weapons. Last year, they assigned me to a top-secret project code-named Amelia. Amelia? Becca repeated, pen poised. Yes, a prototype weapon that uses high-power microwaves. In essence, it can ignite fuel or wiring from a distance. I warned them it was too risky, especially in peacetime, Caleb said. Fists tight, his anger had not cooled with time. But leadership did not care. They wanted successful tests at any cost. Marie listened, hardly breathing. Caleb went on. Aegiswave could not run tests at an official range too secret, and the permits were a nightmare. So they cut deals with a few people in our local government. They found a derelict warehouse, hauled in equipment at night. They planned to test when no one would be around. But my son and his crew ended up there. Marie exhaled as the realization sank in. Caleb nodded. Something went wrong. Maybe the system ran away. A major fire broke out. Your son rushed in to save lives, not knowing it was not a random fire, but the fallout from a weapons test. When it was over, Aegiswave moved fast to cover its tracks. I learned about the tragedy from the news and realized our device caused it. And you decided to find me, Marie shot back. I know what it is to lose someone because of corporate ambition and great power games, Caleb said, voice low. My brother died in a war after being issued faulty gear from a contractor. I could not stand by and watch the story repeat, and I have something that can expose Aegiswave. Becca and Marie traded a look. Becca asked first. Proof. Caleb pulled a flash drive from the inside pocket of his jacket. Video from the tests and documents. I copied everything when I left the company. My conscience ate at me over this project, but I did not have the courage to speak out. When I saw the news about the fire, I knew I could not stay silent. Marie set her hand on the flash drive he passed to her. The weight of the moment cut through her. In her palms lay the key to the truth about her son's death. If this is true, she said slowly, they will pay. Every last one of them. That night Marie slept fitfully, snatches of flame, Danny's voice calling to her, shadows of strangers. At dawn, she understood. The three of them now had a common purpose, justice, and it would be dangerous. The next morning, with the living room door locked, the three allies opened Marie's laptop. Caleb plugged in the flash drive and unlocked a protected folder. Files appeared, videos, documents, reports. Marie's heartbeat quickened. Here was the confirmation of Caleb's story. This is a feed from a diagnostic camera I installed for calibration, he said. What you are about to see is raw footage from Aegiswave's servers. They watched a short video. Night vision, the very warehouse intact. The camera was somewhere inside. A cluster of people in lab coats worked under the direction of a woman in her middle years with sandy hair. That is Dr. Amelia Rayner, Caleb said quietly, nodding at the woman. She led the Amelia Project. Named after herself, can you believe it? A very self-assured type. On the screen, the team prepared a hulking device, like an antenna or emitter mounted on a heavy metal platform. It pointed toward a row of metal drums or fuel tanks. Instrument readings flickered across a monitor, everything looked unstable. Suddenly, the device came alive, an intense charge gathered at the tip of the antenna. Needles on gauges snapped upward. A bright electric discharge slashed the air, crackling and blinding, and almost at once the camera shook under a blast wave. Sparks flew and panic erupted. Flames spread with terrifying speed. Marie covered her mouth. The recording cut off as Amelia screamed something inaudible and ran for the exit. Silence fell. Marie could hear Becca breathing hard, taking in the scope of the disaster. So it is all confirmed, Becca said grimly. Their experiment destroyed the warehouse, and Danny died because of it. Marie clenched her fists until her nails bit into her palms. Pain and fury mingled. What else is there? She asked through her teeth. Caleb opened a text file, an internal Aegiswave report. It spoke of an incident during testing, of a need to sanitize the site and remove witnesses. Marie nearly staggered at the words. Remove witnesses? They mean the firefighters who responded, she whispered. Becca shook her head in horror. That is an explicit order to commit a crime. The corporation ordered that witnesses be eliminated, and it looks like local officials helped bury it. Look, there is correspondence. She pointed to a list of emails. One was addressed to someone in the city administration and copied to a government address with the FBI.gov domain. The FBI? Marie raised an eyebrow. Or someone pretending to be, Caleb said. More likely some federal hands were covering for them. Marie remembered the woman who had appeared at the ruins the next day. Tall, trim, impeccable navy suit, eyes the color of steel and just as cold. She had questioned firefighters in an official tone and barely glanced at Marie. Marie had been too numb then, but now she knew Barlow. "We need to learn more about this Barlow," she said. Becca nodded. "I will work my sources in the police department and the mayor's office to find out who is running the so-called federal investigation. Looks like a cover job." They copied everything from Caleb's drive to several backups and to cloud storage for safety. They agreed to move carefully. Becca set up a meeting with one of the fire inspectors who had examined the ruins. That evening in a small diner on the edge of town, they waited. Marie turned her teacup in nervous circles. Caleb leaned against the wall, angled so he could see the door. A man in uniform without his jacket came in heavyset, mustached, exhausted. He saw Marie and offered a sad half-smile. Thomas Green, an old colleague of her son's. "I am sorry for your loss, Marie," he said, taking the seat across from her. Danny was a good kid. "Thank you, Tom," she said quietly. "We asked you here because we do not buy the official story." Thomas tightened, wariness flashed in his eyes. "Marie, it is dangerous to talk like this." "Which means there is something to talk about," Becca cut in from beside her. "We know there was something unusual there." The inspector scrubbed a hand over his face. "The day we were on scene, some people showed up. One from City Hall, another who said he was a federal agent. That woman, Barlow. They basically told us what to put in our report. Faulty wiring, a gas blast. I saw other things, Marie. Remains of equipment. Cylinders with some kind of chemical. But they threatened me with termination and worse if anything else got out." Marie's jaw set. "Tom, you know this is wrong. People died. My son died." Green lowered his eyes. "I know, and I am ashamed. But I have a family. Kids. The ones upstairs are not playing games. There are very powerful people tangled up in this." "Give us names," Becca said, steady and direct. "We will take it from there." He hesitated, but the plea and the fire in Marie's gaze convinced him. He quietly listed several names. The mayor, Howard. The police chief, Stanford, and Agent Barlow. "Those three were in a meeting after the fire," Thomas whispered, "with a man in an expensive suit, looked like a businessman. I heard someone call him Blake." Marie and Caleb traded a look. Blake, the very kingpin Caleb had mentioned. "Thank you, Tom," Marie said with real warmth. "You helped more than you know. We will not drag you into this any further, I promise. But you did the right thing." Green nodded and rose. "Be careful. I am scared for you. They are ruthless." He left the trio in uneasy silence. That same evening, behind the closed doors of Mayor Howard's office at City Hall, the conspirators gathered. The mayor paced, mopping sweat from his brow. Police Chief Stanford stood apart, arms folded. Agent Barlow sat at the desk, listening to a voice on a speakerphone. "You told me it was handled," the voice said Blake. "But I have information that Collins and two others are collecting evidence. They met with a fire inspector tonight. This needs to stop. Do I make myself clear?" Howard nodded as if the caller could see him. "Yes, of course. We will handle it. Stanford, you said your guy is tailing them?" The chief grunted. "My detective saw them at a diner with Green. Looks like Green cracked. We will deal with him later. But Collins's trio has gone to ground." Barlow rubbed her chin. "I will find them. If they have a flash drive with data, we seize it and destroy it. And the brave souls themselves, if they resist." Steel crept into Blake's tone. "No noise, no traces. As agreed. Do you hear me, Barlow?" "I am a professional," she replied, cold as ice. "By morning, they will not be a problem." Howard sagged into a chair and groaned. "God, what have we done?" Blake snorted in disgust. Get a grip, Mr. Mayor. You were happy to take Aegiswave's money before. Now see it through. Barlow, move. Tomorrow I want to hear that every scrap of evidence is gone. The line went dead. Barlow stood, adjusting her holster. I need a grab team. Stanford, your most dependable people, no questions. The chief nodded. I have a few. I will tell them it is an order from the top. Barlow was almost out the door when the mayor muttered after her, resigned, just make it quick and quiet. She cast him a glacial look over her shoulder. Do not worry, gentlemen. Marie Collins will not see the dawn. We keep digging, Becca said, knuckles white around her pen. This is not just a company, it is a cartel with a badge. And we are going to stop them, Marie answered, voice like iron. I am not backing down until they all answer for Danny's death. Caleb set a hand on her shoulder. We are with you. Over the next 2 days, they quietly gathered more. Becca obtained copies of city financial records. Aegiswave had funneled money into Mayor Howard's campaign through shell companies. Meanwhile, Caleb breached Aegiswave's internal email and found messages from Blake to Barlow discussing steps to neutralize the consequences of the test. In black and white, Barlow, make sure the report is clean. Your reward will arrive through the usual channel. Proof of a dirty federal agent. That is a front-page exposé, Becca murmured as she copied the emails to a memory card. But if we blast it out now, will they disappear? Will they wipe the rest even cleaner? We need not just to publish, we need to catch them in the act, Caleb agreed, especially Blake. Marie, watching the night through the window, suddenly whispered, hush. She had spotted cars in her yard, rolling to a stop without lights. Shapes slipped along the fence. They found us, Marie shouted. Back door now. They stuffed the most crucial drives and papers into a backpack. Caleb darted to the rear door. Becca grabbed the laptop. Marie quickly disengaged the safety on the personal, legally registered handgun she kept at home. Danny had once insisted on teaching her to shoot for self-defense. They burst through the back door into the dark garden just as the front door crashed inward. Shouts. FBI, do not move. Marie clenched her teeth. That was Barlow's voice. No doubt she had come with a full-on raid. Silent and crouched low, they scrambled over the neighbor's fence and ran for the alley. Behind them, heavy boots thundered through Marie's house and curses echoed as the raiders realized their quarry had slipped away. They hid in the empty garage of a friend of Becca's, holed up until morning and trying to decide what next. Barlow was hunting them openly now, using her badge as a shield. Marie sat on the cold concrete, arms wrapped around her knees. Only now, in the garage's darkness, as the chase rush faded, a wave of fear hit her. She sobbed quietly into her sleeves. For a moment, it seemed hopeless, the enemy too strong. She pictured Danny. In her mind, he was a teenager again, fresh from soccer practice, grinning, eyes bright. Mom, I will always protect you, he had joked once as she bandaged a small scrape. She remembered the tiniest detail, the comic book bandage she had stuck on, and his laugh. That memory gave her strength. Marie lifted her head and wiped her tears. She whispered to herself, I will not give up, son. Somewhere beyond the wall, sirens and engines droned through the night, maybe a search, maybe just the city's pulse. Marie jumped at every rustle, but dawn arrived quietly. We are like cornered animals now, Caleb muttered, peeking through a crack in the garage door. We cannot keep this up long. No, Becca said, voice firm. We flipped the script. We have enough to pin them to the wall. We just need one bold move. Marie nodded, fire in her eyes. We force them to show their hand, or we gather evidence so solid they cannot wriggle free, and I have an idea. She turned to Caleb. You said the Amelia project matters to them, right? After the failed first test, they will want to finish the job. Do you know where the gear might be stored or where a new test could happen? Caleb thought, then remembered. I heard Aegiswave leased another site nearby an old hangar by the industrial zone outside town. They might have moved what is left of the rig there. If we slip in and ruin their big night, Becca began. We might force them to reveal themselves, Marie finished, and catch them in the act. It was a risky plan, but it might be their only chance. They prepped as best they could. The bare essentials phone set to record, flashlights, a coil of wire, and simple tools Caleb brought. Marie took her firearm. She knew that if it came to a gunfight, professionals had the edge, but she felt she had to see this through. For Danny, Marie whispered as the three of them climbed into Becca's car and rolled into the night. For justice. For Danny, Caleb and Becca echoed. Under cover of darkness, they eased the car toward the old hangar at the edge of the industrial park. The moon hid behind clouds, laying a dim wash over rows of rusting metal buildings. Caleb killed the headlights early and parked a few hundred yards from the target. They went the rest of the way on foot, following the fence line. They slipped through a gap in the fence and onto the property. Pale electric light leaked from inside the hangar. An armed guard stood by the only visible door. Marie signaled for them to spread out. She veered right. Caleb left. Becca stayed in a shadow near a ragged hole in the wall, ready to help if needed. Marie crept up behind the guard as he turned away to light a cigarette. Summoning every ounce of courage, she stepped into the dark behind him. He toppled and went still. His cigarette clicked faintly on the concrete. "Who?" Marie breathed. Caleb hurried over and helped drag the guard into the bushes. Becca slipped inside. The hangar was cavernous, smelling of ozone and hot metal. Instruments and computers lined the walls, cables snaked everywhere. In the center stood the same emitter Marie had seen in the video. Two people fussed around it, Amelia Rayner and a technician. "Move," Amelia said sharply, focusing on a tablet screen. "Blake will be here any minute. If the system does not come online, we are finished." The tech nodded and worked frantically at a control panel. Marie traded a look with her friends and whispered, "Blake is on the way. We act now." Caleb picked up a long, heavy wrench from the floor and gestured that he would circle behind the tech. Becca stayed near the door, recording. Marie leveled her pistol and stepped out of the shadows, sight trained on Amelia. "Stop! Do not move!" The technician flinched, but Caleb was already on him. Amelia raised her hands, eyes wide with shock and fury. "You think you are clever?" Amelia snapped, her voice shaking with anger and with helplessness. "Do you have any idea what is going to happen to you? You just sabotaged a national security operation." "National security?" Becca called from her cover. "You really want to say that with a straight face when you are on a corporate payroll?" Amelia hissed, "This is bigger than a company. You will all be swatted like flies." Marie struck her, cutting off the tirade. "Enough. You are going to answer for what you have done," she said, voice like flint. Amelia shot her a venomous look, but held her tongue. "Collins," Amelia spat at last, recognition dawning. "How did you?" "Quiet," Marie ordered. "On the floor. Face down." Amelia darted a glance at the exit as if to bolt, but seeing Becca there with a phone and no clean path, she sank to the floor. Caleb whipped the tech's belt free and used it to bind Amelia's hands behind her back. "You have no idea what you are interfering with," Amelia muttered, cheek to cold concrete. "You have no idea what you have done," Marie shot back, leaning over her. "You killed my son." Something flickered in Amelia's eyes. You are the paramedic mother. Listen, it was a tragedy, but it was for the greater good." "For your profit and your career," Marie hissed. A motor rumbled outside, headlights swept the cracks in the hangar door. "Blake," Caleb whispered. Marie's eyes jumped around the space. They had to move fast. She motioned Becca behind a stack of crates and to keep recording. She herself slipped behind the big device, while Caleb cinched Amelia's bindings tighter and hauled her close to the rig, staying beside her. The door opened and two people entered. First, a thick-set man in an expensive dark suit. Closely cropped hair touched with gray at the temples, a face set in practiced confidence. early 40s, with eyes the cold blue of tempered steel. Behind him came Agent Barlow in a black tactical vest, pistol up and ready. "Amelia, what is going on?" the man demanded as he strode in. Then he saw the unconscious tech and stopped short. Barlow went for her radio. "Do not," Marie barked, stepping out from behind the apparatus with her pistol leveled. She stood behind Amelia, the muzzle near the woman's shoulder. Caleb stood with the guard's rifle he had taken earlier. Barlow snapped her aim to Marie, but froze, wary of hitting Amelia. "Collins," Blake said, spitting the name with a curled smile. "I had hoped you would be handled sooner, and yet here you are. Providence delivers." "Hands up, both of you," Marie ordered. Blake lifted his hands, swagger intact. Barlow did the same, eyes blazing. "You are under arrest for assaulting a federal agent," Barlow barked, trying to seize control with her voice. "You will not walk away from this." "Really?" Caleb said from the side, keeping Amelia pinned. "After everything you have done, you are going to hide behind the law." Barlow bit down on a retort and glanced at Blake, waiting for a cue. "So you are the one pulling the strings, Blake," Marie said, her anger ringing clear. "My son died because of your greed." Blake snorted. "Because of my pragmatic decisions, ma'am. Your son was in the wrong place at the wrong time. It happens. This is a brutal world, and we make hard choices for the security of the country." "Security?" Becca stepped from the shadows with her phone up, the camera rolling. "You call the murder of innocents a pragmatic decision?" Blake's mouth twitched. "Of course, you have no idea who you are playing with. The Amelia system would give our military an unbeatable edge, and the company would secure multi-billion-dollar contracts. Do you really think some small-town firefighters could stop me? Your crusade is pointless. And your son, a hero, was he not? Died saving people. At least there is some nobility in that." Barlow used the distraction to snatch for a backup pistol on her thigh. A gunshot cracked. The reflex shot came from Marie. The round tore the air near Barlow, driving her back. "Drop it, Barlow," Marie shouted. "The next one will not miss." Jaw clenched, Barlow glanced at Blake's icy stare, then let the weapon clatter to the floor. "This is over," Caleb said, moving in to kick the gun away. "We have it all. Every word." Blake paled for the first time. "What? What do you think you have recorded?" "Everything," Becca said, lifting her phone. "The order to destroy witnesses. Your pragmatic decisions. What really happened. The file is already in the cloud, so killing the three of us will not help you." Amelia, still bound on the floor, turned her head toward Blake. "I am sorry, Blake. They caught me off guard," she whispered. He looked down at her with open contempt. "Be quiet, fool." Heat surged through Marie. "Do you feel nothing?" she asked, staring him down. "6 firefighters died, my son among them. What do you feel about that?" Blake exhaled a disdainful laugh. "Feelings? Do you think any major player cares about such trifles? Results are what matter. Your son, again, unfortunate, but the world belongs to the strong." Rage darkened Marie's vision. Her finger tightened on the trigger. But the light brush of Caleb's hand on her shoulder pulled her back. "Do not," he whispered. "He is going to face a court." Marie nodded, lowering the gun, but not her gaze. Sirens wailed in the distance. Becca smiled. "Our backup. While you two were busy, I sent our location to a trusted contact at the Department of Justice. They called the state police." Blake lunged toward the door, but Caleb snatched Barlow's handcuffs from her holster and wrenched Blake's arm, snapping the bracelets onto his wrists. Barlow bolted deeper into the hangar, but Marie sprinted after her, tackled her, and pinned her with a knee. "You are under arrest, Agent Barlow," Marie rasped, throwing her own words back at her. "For betraying your oath and for complicity in murder." Barlow only hissed a curse, knowing she had lost. Moments later, armed officers poured into the hangar state police, flanked by 2 men in plain clothes with Department of Justice credentials. Marie, Caleb, and Becker raised their hands to show they would comply, then pointed straight at Blake, Barlow, and Amelia. "Those are your principal offenders," Marie told the officers, breath ragged. "We have the proof." The police disarmed everyone and took Blake and his accomplices into custody. Becca handed her phone to a detective at once. The hangar buzzed with activity, but for Marie, everything went quiet. She sank to the floor beside Caleb, feeling the weight on her chest lift, if only a little. Becca ran to her and wrapped her in a hug. "We did it, Marie. We got the truth," she whispered. Exhausted, Marie closed her eyes, and a tear slid down her cheek this time, a tear of relief. 2 weeks later, the Aegiswave case shook the nation. Headlines blared, "Corporate conspiracy leads to deaths of hero firefighters." Mayor Howard and Police Chief Stanford resigned within an hour, only to be arrested for corruption and obstruction of justice. Agent Barlow was charged with betrayal of oath and complicity. Amelia Rayner and several Aegiswave engineers were taken into custody for illegal weapons testing and cover-ups. Aegiswave itself, until then a little-known company, became a byword for reckless impunity. The board fired several top executives in an emergency sweep. The chief executive tried to plead ignorance, but the public and the government demanded that he face consequences. Negligence charges loomed. Everywhere, voices called for tighter oversight of private military research. Congress launched high-profile hearings into the conduct of private defense contractors. In a grand committee room, lawmakers grilled officials and company leaders. How did secret tests end up happening in a residential area? The chair thundered, glaring at uncomfortable representatives of the Defense Department. There was no good answer. Witnesses to the tragedy were invited to speak. Marie, steadying herself, told the committee about the night she lost her son and the path they had taken to the truth. Her remarks, though brief, moved many in the chamber. Some legislators wiped away tears. One congressman later said, "We owe it to heroes like her son to make sure this never happens again." Blake's recorded confession became the linchpin. His chilling words about pragmatic decisions echoed across the country. The conspiracy's reach even touched certain federal offices. 2 senior officials were exposed for aiding Aegiswave and were removed from their posts. They had shielded the illegal tests and pocketed hefty kickbacks. A broad purge and investigation began in Washington. In Marie's hometown, people called her the hero mom. Newspapers praised her courage and grit. At Becca's urging, the community raised funds to establish the Danny Collins Foundation to support families of fallen firefighters. Marie was deeply moved by the outpouring and felt less alone. The whole town stood with her in the fight for the truth. At the second memorial for the firefighters lost in that terrible blaze, the community gathered again, this time to hear the truth and honor the heroes without a shadow of lies. Marie stood beside Danny's portrait in dress uniform. Becca and Caleb flanked her for strength. A representative of the governor announced posthumous medals for bravery. Pride swelled in Marie's chest. Her son's name had been cleared of any hint of mistake or accident. Everyone now knew they had died battling a disaster caused by criminals. After the formalities, other families came to Marie. They hugged her and thanked her through tears. Survivors from the department gripped her hand hard, calling her a true fighter. Everyone understood. Without her, the truth might have stayed buried in ash. When the ceremony ended, Marie, Becca, and Caleb took a slow walk along the park path beside the firefighters' memorial. Autumn leaves rustled underfoot. They were silent, but it was an easy silence. The work they could do had been done. "Are you going back to the ambulance?" Becca asked gently. Marie sighed. "I think so. I did not lose my license, and helping people is my calling. After all this, it will be hard to live a normal life again." "You could switch to detective or journalist," Caleb joked with a smile. "You have a knack." Marie managed a faint smile. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she could joke. "If you need me, I will help unravel the next conspiracy," she said in the same spirit, and they laughed. "Thank you, both of you," Caleb said, a little shy. If not for you, Marie, and you, Becca, I might never have found the nerve to bring this to light. Marie hugged him. You took the risk and brought the truth. We are a team. Becca stepped in too, and for a moment the three of them stood in a tight circle of friendship. Then they parted ways. Caleb was headed to Washington for further testimony. Becca had a newsroom stacked with interview requests. Marie lingered, drawing in the cool air. She drifted away from her friends and turned toward a quiet corner of the cemetery where Danny lay. Kneeling at the fresh headstone, she traced his name carved in the stone. Pain and relief thrummed together in her chest. "We did it, sweetheart," she whispered, as if he could hear. "I promised to find the truth, and I did. The guilty will answer." A small breeze stirred the yellowed leaves at her feet, and in their whisper she almost heard her son's voice. "Thank you, Mom." She brushed away a tear and stood, filled with a quiet pride. Danny would have been proud of her. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Marie hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" Silence for a few seconds, just a soft hiss, like a scrambled line. Then a calm male voice. "Miss Collins, you do not know me, but I know your story well. You have proven yourself brave." Marie tensed. "Who is this?" "Call me a friend. I wanted to warn you. What you exposed is only the tip of the iceberg. There are people who do not welcome your curiosity. Be careful, and if you want to help stop a new threat, I will be in touch." Marie's mouth went dry. "What threat? What are you talking about?" But the caller had already ended the call. On her screen, for a heartbeat, lingered a short coded string, then itself deleted. Marie looked around the quiet grounds, half expecting to spot the watcher. The sun had slipped behind the trees, stretching the shadows. She understood that her life had changed for good, and somewhere around the corner, another conspiracy might be waiting. She slid the phone into her pocket and straightened. The same spark of resolve burned in her eyes. If a new danger rose up, she would meet it head-on. Marie walked the park path away from the memorial. A new life lay ahead, one in which she would not look away from anyone else's injustice.